tell us a little bit about you and your experience.
Sure. Yeah. I am a former founder and CEO of an animal welfare nonprofit that I ran for about 10 years. And we essentially started it in my garage and with $0. And of course, fundraising was a really big part of growing that into what it became, which eventually was a spay neuter clinic and wellness clinic that served 20,000 animals a year. And we had 25 staff and a $2 million budget. So I definitely can relate to what it's like to start from scratch and then also use fundraising as a tool to grow an organization and help achieve your mission.
Awesome. I really want that to sink in for people, that you started in your garage with nothing and grew to a $2 million organization in 10 years. So for everybody who has big dreams, I really want them to let that sink in. That is doable. Other people have walked that path like you, and that is possible for everybody else. Now, one of the things that I know that you're really good at is storytelling and connecting emotionally with people. Talk about that and how important that is to fundraising.
Yeah, I mean, storytelling is really the part where you're going for the heartstrings. You're telling the reason why you do this work and the reason why your donors want to support your work. And it's really, you can have all of your plans and those are super important. And then adding the story in is really that like extra punch that just really connects with your donors and compels them to give and makes them want to be a part of what you're doing because they can see their investment in action.
I think if you took two very similar nonprofits and put them side by side, if one of them tells a connecting emotional story and the other one doesn't, guess which one's going to raise more money?
Absolutely. Hands down, every time.
Absolutely. We've seen it before. Now, we're talking a lot here at Inspired Fundraising Retreat about fall fundraising. We know that this is fundraising season. This is the time of year. Talk to us about how storytelling plays a role the closer we get to the holidays in making fundraising successful.
It's a huge part of your end of year fundraising plan. So, it's critical to have your deadlines and your, when you're going to send your newsletters and your direct mail and all of that stuff. And then your story can come in and really anchor your plan. So if you're kind of searching around, like, how am I, I have all my deadlines now, where do I go from there? Your story can really help lead you in where you want to take your campaign. So it's going to help you with imagery and your wording. And again, like I said, it's the heartstrings and the, sort of the heart of your campaign, essentially. So, if you're feeling a little bit lost about where to take your campaign, I would always say, find your most compelling story, go back to your story and just make sure that you're telling it in a really compelling way. And that's going to just help your campaign move forward and be really, really successful.
Yeah. I can remember times when I would take a single story and use it in lots of places, use it in a newsletter and in a direct mail appeal and in social media or in a thank you letter. And it kind of seemed repetitive, but in a way it really tied everything together in the donor's mind.
I really like to do that too, because it also is just a gentle reminder to the donor. Oh yeah, I saw that letter. It's sitting on my kitchen counter. I haven't responded to it yet. I want to get back to that. I really love that story. So yeah, don't be afraid to use that same story in multiple elements of your end of year campaign because it can be really effective.
I can remember seeing some of the pieces and newsletters and appeals that you sent out from your organization and how good some of the stories were. And you're right, boy, they just made all the difference and really motivating. I know I gave to several of those.
Thank you. Yeah.
Let's talk about where a lot of nonprofits mess up. And I know that storytelling is a buzzword that a lot of nonprofits hear, but I think that a lot of people don't really understand what it means. And I'm not sure that everybody does it well. So let's talk a little bit about where organizations really mess up with storytelling.
I think the biggest hiccup that most organizations make is having the story be about the organization rather than about the beneficiary, whether it's, a client or a patient or an animal or whoever you serve. It's about them. And then drawing the direct line to how the donor is making it better for that beneficiary. And you can, your natural instinct is probably to say, oh, look at the great work that we're doing for this animal or person, but you really want to draw the line to the donor because you want them to see when you give money, this is the result. So you call it fundraising French, and it's saying, we, look what we did. This is what we do. And really taking that out and making it about the donor and saying, you are making a difference in this life, and this is how. So the story needs to be about the beneficiary and about the impact that the donor is having. So it may feel a little counterintuitive, but that is the way to connect as quickly as possible.
Absolutely. To me, that's what I call hero language. When you're basically telling the donor, here's the situation, you can save the day, you can be the hero, and here's how you do that. You're exactly right. The story doesn't need to be about the nonprofit. It needs to be about how the donor can be the hero and change a life, make a difference. All right. So do you have any good stories that you can tell us about a time when telling a story really made all the difference in a fundraising appeal or a campaign?
Sure. Yeah. So kind of early in our history at the organization that I founded, our direct mail program was doing okay, but floundering a little bit. It was kind of a little hit or miss. And then this one particular campaign really taught me the power of storytelling. So I'll tell you the story about this wonderful client that we had, this a retired gentleman. He had been in the military, and due to some of his military activities, he had lost a lot of his hearing and his vision. And so he was actually legally blind and deaf. He had some hearing and vision, but he was really limited in what he could do. But he found a cat eating out of a dumpster in his apartment complex. And he told me, I said to this cat, I'm going to go open the door to my apartment. And if you want to come live with me, I'll take care of you. And so he did that. And the cat walked in, and they became fast friends. And then a few weeks later, he noticed the cat was spending a lot of time in his closet, but he wasn't really sure why. And then a few weeks after that, he realized he had kittens living in his apartment with him. And that cat had come in and had a litter of kittens in his closet. So, he wasn't really sure exactly what to do, but he had this friend that knew about our spay neuter clinic and reached out to us, and we helped him get the mama cat spayed and neutered and connected him with a rescue organization to find homes for the kittens. And so we took that story, and with our direct mailer, we did a little teaser on the envelope that said, Ronald found this cat eating from a dumpster. You won't believe what happens next. So first of all, they were like, oh, I got to open this letter and find out what happened. And telling his story and just how, and the connection that he had with this cat was just so beautiful. And it, the return on that appeal and just telling his story and how he helped that cat really was the most successful direct mail campaign that we had ever had in our history up to that point. So it just really hit me like, oh, you got to tell the story about how awesome the client is and how the donor made that success story possible.
I love that. I kind of wish we had time to really dissect that and look at why that was so successful, because I can see several pieces of that right away. What I love about that is you took a story that was very relatable. It was very inspirational. People can immediately feel something for him, feel something for the cat, get a chuckle out of the cat just following him in when he said, I'm going to open the door, come in or don't. I love that. There's so many elements of that really worked together to make that a successful appeal. That's wonderful.
Yeah. And it really did take some time of me actually going to his house. A staff member told me about him. And so I had to actually call him up and get his story. I went to his house and took a picture. So it did take a little bit of effort, but it paid off. It was so worth it.
Absolutely. And I'm going to bet that you probably had donors or people in the community asking you about him after that direct mail drop. They would probably said, I love that story. How's he doing? How's the cat?
Absolutely. And I was curious too. So I would check in on him just every so often just to see how they were doing. And yeah, donors would ask about him too, because they felt connected to his story.
Which that's a sign that you're doing it right when people ask you follow-up questions about the story.
Absolutely, for sure.
That's so fun. Nice job. Master storyteller indeed. Master storyteller. Tell me one thing that you hope that people will write down in their notes about connecting emotionally and storytelling, especially when it comes to fundraising this fall.
I hope that everybody will write this down and convey to their staff or their board stories are the golden nuggets of fundraising, and they're worth so much. And so what I would do with my staff to kind of help solidify that importance was, put in their job description, you need to submit a story once a month, but I would make it really easy for them. So, because I didn't always have access directly to the clients, or my development staff didn't. And so they didn't have to submit a fully formed story, but we wanted them to just say, oh, this really amazing client came in this week, and I just thought you might want to follow up with them and see if you could get their story, or, just some sort of lead. We just needed leads that we could follow up, and then make sure later on to tell the staff, your staff meeting or what have you, hey, by the way, Jenny submitted this story last quarter and we used it in our newsletter. It raised $1,000. So, you guys can see that really does make a difference. And so kind of just, your staff is busy. You got to make it really easy on them. But also, if they know how important, how valuable those stories are, it'll help you in collecting those stories for your fundraising efforts.
Perfect. And for organizations that don't have staff, insert the word volunteer there.